Justin, can you throw it in presentation mode? Okay. All right, everybody, we're going to begin. The meeting is recording, just per the city's policies on recording official business of the city of San Jose. If everyone could please mute themselves, and we will kick it over to the chair to call the meeting to order. And Jill will have some opening remarks before we move on to the next slide.
I apologize. I was pulled away just as that was starting. So did you want me to call the meeting to order?
Yes.
All right. I'm knocking my gavel here. Calling to order the San Jose Library and Education Commission meeting for August 19th, 2020.
Okay.
Are we doing a roll call of attendance?
We can do that. Jill, did you have any remarks before we start?
Oh, sorry.
Sure. Yeah, I wasn't sure if we did roll first either, but I just want to welcome everybody to this brave new world of our commission meetings. Really appreciate your engagement even during this time of isolation. And we're gonna, Anne already mentioned that we need to stay on mute and that will be recorded. We're gonna have questions later in the meeting, but during the presentation, you can use the Q&A feature to pose questions as they come up. And so I just want to thank you guys all again for being here, for being so engaged, and I'm really looking forward. I know it might be a little rocky, this first meeting. This is kind of our re-entry into engaging as a commission, but really looking forward to re-engaging with you and hearing from you over the course of the meeting tonight. So Justin, why don't you go ahead and call the roll?
Unmute. No, I'm not on mute. Okay. You know, I believe all commissioners are present. Yeah, I think they are.
Do we have Commissioner Allen? No, I don't believe so.
Oh no. Okay. With the exception of Commissioner Allen. I think once I put it on, when I started sharing my screen, all my stuff kind of went away, so I'm trying to recover it.
Okay, could you go to the third slide now? We'll keep track of the roll since we've got the we've got all of you in these nice little squares.
Okay.
So I had the approval of the agenda as item 2. Is that, are we doing that?
So consent calendar is approval of the agenda, I believe.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Sorry, I don't have my glasses on.
I move.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Snyder and a second from, I believe that was Commissioner Jolly.
Yes.
Is there any discussion? And this includes the minutes from the February meeting, is that correct?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So I don't know that I can second that. I wasn't at the February meeting if it includes those minutes.
You can second. You don't need to be there.
Right.
Oh, sorry, Michael.
Okay.
My bad. So forgive me.
That's okay. I was gonna say what you said.
Please forgive me.
Okay, then my second stands.
Yeah. So I'll, if there's no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you want us to raise our hands so you can see? Because I'm not sure if you can tell how many ayes there are, right? If it's enough.
So since these aren't controversial items, what we're just doing is allowing you guys to do voice votes. And then if there is any dissent or opposition, we'll
note them.
In the inverse and
so
doing it to save time.
Any disapprovals? Any abstentions? Okay, sounds like that passes unanimously.
Oh, there we
Okay.
are. Justin, did we go out of order? They did go out of order. Okay, so let's go back to the approval of the agenda.
There we go, public record.
Okay. Sorry, I was trying to find everything. Like I said, once I put everything on share, like all my stuff disappeared. So I was trying to find it again.
Okay. So I don't think that we approved the agenda. We approved the minutes. So let's go back to the approval of the agenda.
Okay.
Michael, you were right. I'm sorry. I didn't understand quite. Go back one more, Justin. Okay, there we go. Now you can take a motion.
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. Justin, did you get the commissioners?
Right, I did.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can we have a voice vote for the approval of the agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. Okay. Moving on to public record or correspondence. Do we have any?
We do not have any items for the public record.
Okay.
So we'll move on.
All right. Moving on to next item, open forum. 2 minutes of speaking time is available.
There are no members of the public here to speak.
All right.
So we will move on.
Move on to the next agenda item.
Justin, go one more.
Action item number 1, election of officers for fiscal year 2020, 2021. Do I just jump right in for nominations? If there are any nominations for the position of chair? Oh, welcome, Commissioner Allen.
I nominate Michael Malillo for chair for the 2020-2021 year. So what we're doing?
Yes.
That is what we're doing. Before I accept, I just want to make a mini statement that the current environment has been very challenging for me to meet both the needs of the chair position here and my family and work. So if anyone else is interested in the responsibilities of chair, I would not take offense to another nomination. Are there any other nominations?
You do such a great job, Michael.
I adore you, Michael, but I would like to see some women in this position since it has been led by a man for as long as I know. So I would like to nominate our VP to become, or our vice chair to become the chair. So Wendy, if you're open, I would like to nominate you.
Thank you.
And not just because you're a woman, you're super capable. You know.
I like the capable part. That's good. Thank you. Yes, I accept the nomination in the way it was given in that sense.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations? Okay. Then I think, if I'm reading this clearly, that they have to be accepted by the nominee. I'm going to go ahead and pass on the exception of the nomination. And in that case, there's only one nomination for chair. Do we need to still vote for that?
We should.
Okay. I don't see any reason why not. Yeah. So do we need is it just a vote in favor, or do we need a motion to approve Wendy as chair?
It would be a vote in favor of Wendy becoming chair as well.
Okay.
And it can be a voice, just
Right.
a voice vote.
So all of those commissioners who wish to vote for Commissioner Mahaney Guru to be chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, I think that passes.
Wow, I have to say thank you. And I don't know, it's my year. I'm running for San Jose Unified School Board and I am trustee elect. No one ran against me. And so here we are. As thank you, chair of our fabulous, wonderful, amazing crew at the Library Commission and Early Education Commission. Thank you.
All right.
Congratulations, Wendy.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Something going on in a convention of some sort at the same time, so I think it's kind of propitious.
100 years of women suffragettes. I love you guys, but I'm also saying 100 years. Here we are.
So moving on to the position of vice chair, do we have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Jose.
Okay, Commissioner Magana, would you like to accept the nomination?
Contingent on who else is hoping to potentially be on it as well.
Okay, understood. Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
Can we ask if anyone else is interested in doing it?
Yeah, well, I should add that you can nominate yourself if you are interested.
Not right now, no.
Then I will gladly accept.
Okay. So then we'll just do a quick vote. All in favor of Commissioner Magana as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions?
I will abstain. This is Commissioner Magana.
No. So duly noted. And that passes. So congratulations to the chair and vice chair who will take over the reins at our September meeting. So you don't have to take the gavel
Thank God.
this evening.
Michael, you've a great job. And you are someone I really, really appreciate. Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
I want to echo that from the staff, Michael. It's been a pleasure to work for me from the beginning, and we really appreciate you step into this role. Also, just for the new electeds, you can expect to hear from us before the September meeting to prepare for that one.
Looking forward to it.
Indeed.
All right. Moving on to the next item, I think it's the work plan.
Yes. So we will, no, Justin, other way, one more. There we go. And if you could advance the slide one more time. In your, I know this is small on the screen, in your agenda, you should have had a linked copy of this in larger format if that's easier to look at.
Not much larger.
This is the proposed work plan for this commission for the year. You'll notice it's a little bit lighter now than we've had in the past, and we've simply kept it light because this is a new world. We want to make sure that we're preserving our time and capabilities through the Zoom meetings. We're expecting to be operating via Zoom meetings at least through the end of this calendar year, so through the November meeting. And we just weren't sure how it was going to go. We also weren't sure exactly what library staff was going to be asked to do to help the community persevere through this environment. So I don't want to go through every single item, but I would like to pause for questions, suggestions, or requests for changes of the work plan.
Got a minute to look at it?
Sure.
This is pretty
I'm
typical.
lo-
This is a pretty typical flow year to year. Anything special or outstanding about this?
There's not anything special. This has been aligned with our annual items that we take a look at, like bond oversight and budget.
Yeah,
Those
I recognize.
civil actions. And it's been lined up with the
There you go.
council committee, the Neighborhood Services and Education committee meeting. So the items that will be heard at that committee are lined up to come to you the month before. But we're, if there's things that are missing on this, love to hear that.
So my one question I have, I see we have obviously a COVID update tonight. There's another one scheduled for September, and then there aren't any more for the rest of the year. Obviously, very hard to plan around how long we're going to need to keep updating on this. But does it make sense to put something quarterly as a placeholder here in the event things get added? Like right now, March looks light, but we could add things to March in October and again in November, and suddenly you're kind of, March could be full. So I guess my point is, should we just pencil in? Because even if things were to like clear up, we're probably going to want some sort of post-mortem evaluation of COVID after it's passed, of all of the impacts of on staffing, on service levels, on all of those things. So it may be worth putting something either in the spring or early summer to kind of come back. Hopefully it's not a more day-to-day update the way the August and September's probably are going to be, but just something that we probably need to pencil in.
Well, you could put it in as required quarterly. That would just like a placemaker, just to keep us, because we probably won't have to be reminded, but I think it's a good idea. I support that.
Certainly. Yeah, I don't see any issues with that at all.
Would it be possible at some point this year to have an overview of the security situation at the library and when San Jose police, in what circumstances they might be called, and if there are other organizations that the library calls upon under certain emergency circumstances or for dealing with certain types of situations?
Thank you, Commissioner. Would it be okay, since we don't know when we're going to be opening, if we put that somewhere like in March, or would you like to have that sooner?
March would be fine. Whenever would work well for the staff.
Okay, thank you.
Is that the plan? Library's not going to open until March at the earliest?
No, just what we've heard so far is it may be unlikely that we open for regular service prior to the end of the calendar year. And so I was just looking for a place where we're kind of have a lot of room in the agenda to add an item. I know that Jenny and her team are already looking at security, but it is a little challenging in the current shutdown environment.
Might it make sense to have that discussion before it reopens though? So like how it reopens rather than after it's opened?
We could certainly do that. We really don't know when we're going to reopen. And I'm looking, November is usually our most packed agenda.
What about
we could also have two discussions. I mean, we could have a discussion and then get feedback and have something that we then work on and have it later. So maybe we could do something as early as October. Jenny, what do you think? I know you're on.
I think that sounds like a good idea. I believe by October we may at least have some preliminary ideas of what we could do, and we could present those. And then once we have a fully developed plan to move forward, we could provide a second update.
We have reached out to the police for meetings, but with the transition of the chief position, we're still trying to identify who our lead partner is going to be in exploring some of these issues.
I have a quick question. Is the security at the library, is it police, or is it security, or is it campus security, or all three?
It's all three.
Okay.
At the King Library, it's the University Police, the UPD. And in our branches, actually, we do have security officer staff, but we have 2.5 positions for the entire branch system.
Wow.
So, and we also, our security officers are not, and so this would be a good discussion to have, right? In general, our security officers are not intended to necessarily to act as law enforcement. And that's by design. You know, we don't want our spaces to be, militarized, for lack of a better term. But so that means that when we have serious issues that could cause safety concerns for staff or the public, we have relied heavily on the police. And that's kind of the conversation that we're trying to have, is how to ensure that, you know, whether that still is the right arrangement, and that if it is in fact the same, to ensure that our spaces are going to be safe and sort of in the manner that we expect for library spaces. So it's a complicated subject. Jenny and her team have worked really hard, but the recent events have really reversed the direction we were going, which is that the police handles anything that is potentially dangerous in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, it's really left a question about how do we proceed. And so we really need to talk with them, but I think it's important to get feedback from you all and other stakeholders as well. I think it's a really important topic, so thank you for reminding us of that, Commissioner Thorson.
I think if we penciled it in March, that might give this SJPD time to hire a new chief.
Yeah, maybe we could do more of an informative discussion in October, and that way get feedback from the commission, but plan to come back with an actual plan in March or something like that.
Well, we have to do some kind of risk assessment of some sort like that. I mean, obviously the San Jose PD would be doing that too. How involved do we actually get? I don't know what risks we're dealing with, other than, well, I don't know, just basic security. I don't think we need M16s and stuff like that, obviously, but
absolutely not. I mean, that might be good. We could give an overview of what the reality of security is in a large urban public library system.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there would be time for, you know, sort of a preliminary sort of review of, you know, what the calls were, but that could be really helpful too, to know, you know, what, you know, why the police has been called in the past, to have a feel for, you know, what organization. I mean, I think I could be wrong about where Hillary was going, but, you know, if there are other, you know, appropriate sources of support out there other than the police, if appropriate.
I think we'd have to rely on the San Jose PD, obviously, to.
No, we don't necessarily.
No, I mean, rely from the standpoint of getting their input as to what we have to decide what our needs are and bounce it off of them and see if they're in agreement, or else.
Right.
Private security, I think, would be out of the question.
We have used contract security in the past. It's very ineffective. I could just give a blanket statement. There are many, many issues with it. So I think what we can do is sort of dig in on the data around our security and provide you all with an overview of what the issues are that we're talking about, and I think on the topic of the police, you know, we are open because I believe that the police, in light of recent incidents, have been discussing different ways to do their work. And so there may be a new option that works really well for a space like a library. So that's kind of the conversation we would have with them. But otherwise, we're very concerned about, you know, just as we were with our own security guards, about the presence of weapons or other types of things that can sometimes escalate situations. And yet we need to keep our folks safe in the libraries. And we do, you know, public libraries, if we're doing our job right, we deal with everything the community deals with. And that is the case.
So the history would be the main thing. History of things we've done, what we've dealt with in the past, or potential problems we've had in the past, and factor that in, and then go from there. Obviously, you don't scare people away too much of a presence.
There is data around our security. We do collect that data, so we'll have to do a dive into that and assess. We can reports and whatnot. So we'll take a look at the data first.
That's the best way to go, based on history, and then kind of an estimate of what possibilities in the future. It should be hard to call. But.
Yeah, and we can give you guys an overview of, you know, we've done a lot of work policy-wise on security over the past 3 to 4 years. And so really tried to button up our processes and ensure that we have that data so that we can really communicate well with both the UPD, with any other types of security that we have, and with law enforcement.
And I recall a lot of reports on, you know, lighting and, you know, you know, things that we've done over the years to try and make things safer, you know, outside of police as well, which has been great.
Yeah, cameras, all that stuff. Yeah, so, but it's a really rich topic, so I think it'll be good to have more than one discussion.
Thank you.
Great. Other items? Okay. Well, if you think of anything in the next short period of time, then go ahead and send it our way. We'll be finalizing this work plan and taking it for approval to the Neighborhood Services and Education Committee meeting in September. So we'll be packaging it up and shipping it over to City Hall for our City Council members to take a look at and approve.
So wait, I have one more. Is there anything so I know we're doing the college and career readiness one. I see that's in October. And I know that there was discussion about changing the name of our commission to be education rather than just early education. And I wonder where that would be appropriate to bring up.
We actually already changed the name.
It's changed.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Complete.
It happened in February when the City Council approved the policy. The name was part of that action.
I was very careful when I started the meeting this morning or tonight to not say early education.
I did not know. I heard several other people say early. So good. Okay. All right. Lovely. Never mind. Excellent. Thank you.
I'm sure we will say it many times before we all kick the habit.
All right. Well, hey, you know, when we get all back together, we'll have to, you know, throw a party, celebrate that.
So bottom line, early, LEC still encompasses early. It's just that we don't have the E in there. That's the only.
Correct.
It's not only early. We never were only early, but as part of the title, it kind of made it feel like we were limited to early, which we're not.
It's library and early education, I suppose. But it's library. Yeah. Okay, you're right.
It's part of the spectrum of education. So I just wanted to comment on one more thing. There is an agenda item every month that we don't use very often, but that the commissioners could, especially with this lighter work plan, which is that commissioners can bring up topics for future months to discuss every month when we meet, and we can slot it in the calendar. Typically, we have such a full calendar that doesn't happen very often, but I would encourage folks to be thinking that way, and feel free to contact us in between meetings to discuss any ideas that you have.
Do we need to vote tonight to adopt the amended work plan?
Yes, so you'll need to vote, and I think the language can be work plan as amended by the group, just in consensus.
So I'm sorry, I have one more question, and then I'm sorry. I want to know what I'm voting on. Okay. So one of my favorite ones that the reports, and I'm not really sure who does it, but where it talks about the usage and the different groups, and so like how my seniors that I'm always bringing up, but also like who's using the library, and I know the library itself is closed, but I'd still be interested to know who's using the digital library, who's accessing it, who's checking out books, because you do have that great system that I've been using. So is there a sort of data review? Because I'm just not sure if the titles is one of these titles encompass that usage review?
So what's
I'm wondering, oh, sorry, I was wondering if that was part of the collections update each year, or was there another one?
So I think some of the data that Dr. Rivers is referring to is data that comes to them through their branch and program updates that we used to do every month. And we've taken those out as line items in the work plan because we're just not sure how things are going to go. But in every month, we will be reviewing what we could bring to you. So it won't be on the work plan, but we will be bringing forward programs and topics every month to review as the meetings kind of allow, as we learn how to have efficient Zoom commission meetings. And so I think that's probably where that information comes from. And you're right that it's not articulated in the work plan, but do know that that is part of our plan, is to continue to bring those updates as it's appropriate.
Okay, great. Because I'm just really interested to hear how it's going, from remote too. So thank you.
So then we'll amend the work plan to add quarterly COVID updates, and then an informational overview of security practices at the library in October, with a full report in March for feedback on that topic. Is there anything else?
Actually, could the usage be part of the COVID update?
Yeah, absolutely. Where it's appropriate, that information will be brought to you. I just don't want to say that there will only be one place where it comes in.
No, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, Chair, I think you're ready for a vote if someone has a motion.
Hey,
move to approve.
move to approve the amended work plan. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Jolly, and second, I believe, was it Commissioner Rivers?
Wendy.
Oh, it was. Okay, Justin will take that.
Either way.
You can have it, Wendy. It's all good.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to COVID update.
Justin, can you advance one more? Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone. This is Jenny. I seem to have lost the good lighting in this room, so I'm a little blue right now. So it's probably safe for everyone not to have to look at my face right now anyway. But Michelle, our other Deputy Director of Public Services, and I are going to do a presentation on all the activities that the library's been conducting during the COVID-19, the service impacts, and an overview of kind of how we're dealing with the pandemic response. So I can go ahead and start us off. If I could get the first slide. So due to the COVID-19 pandemic response, as you know, the library facilities closed to the public in March of 2020, and that was in accordance with the county public health shelter-in-place orders. So the city actually has an emergency operations center, or EOC as we refer to it, and they're the central advisory center for all of the city departments, as well as staff and employees during these types of emergencies. So the library coordinates closely with the EOC's safety branch to modify service delivery throughout the different phases of the emergency response. And this is the process that we've kind of developed as we've moved through each of these phases of modified service. So the library will develop an operating plan. We'll put together the associated tasks, kind of our anticipated staffing levels, and then recommend safety protocols for each of these modified types of services we've been trying to expand during the COVID shutdown. So what we do is we work with the EOC safety team. That includes staff from our Public Works Facilities Department, as well as our employee relations and HR. And there's now a city task force called Powered by the People that is working with each of the departments to kind of vet their plans for modified service or service expansion. And what we do is we try to determine the appropriate personal protective equipment that we need to provide our staff for performing this essential work. Facilities modifications, we procure cleaning supplies, additional technology equipment, and then of course with all of these services we have to add additional signage for, you know, like mandated public health orders for face coverings or for workplace screening. And then we do put together a public outreach plan for each of the services that we roll out. And then once that plan is approved, we make sure to train all of our library staff. There's a lot of new safety protocols, obviously, that are in place. A lot of new, you know, inserted cleaning protocols that we have to take to ensure that our, you know, our equipment stays safe and that our materials stay safe. And let's see. So once we were given the shelter-in-place order, the library department actually developed a continuity of operations pandemic response plan. And this was in line with the county and city's emergency phases. And what we're doing is identifying mission critical functions and essential staff to keep these functions operational. Could I get the next slide? So here's some of the examples of the on-site essential services that we've been continuing, as well as the remote essential services. So the library quickly had to transition when we sheltered in place all of our in-person services to virtual programming. And we moved nearly 200 staff to be set up for teleworking and remote access. So normally, you know, we generally did not have this number of staff doing remote access. It was a really quick transition. We had to quickly assign these new duties to people, and we began planning for whatever modified services we could to support our community as the city and the county moved into the different stages of the pandemic response. So some of the on-site essential services that are continuing while our facilities are closed are materials management. So we still have people sorting our materials. We still have deliveries from branch to branch. As you probably, most of you know, we're doing the express pickup service. So we do have a lot of staff working to provide those services. We have transitioned several virtual program recordings and broadcasting, as you may see on our social media. Technology access is another piece that we've been working on pretty heavily recently. And then facilities management and security services are also continuing as we expand our services. And the remote essential services that are being performed are our administrative services that would include all of our financial budget, our human resources, personnel, technology support. So our IT team was really busy at the onset to kind of get all the equipment needs met and get everyone set up to connect to City Hall VPN and the library VPN, all that fun stuff. Then we have our programming and access services. Our public engagement, you know, we realize that the website and our social media services have become really crucial in ensuring that we keep our public informed of all of our services, as well as, you know, communicating updates to the public. And then our education and digital literacy. Next slide. So the library's priorities during the COVID response have been focusing on public services, emergency operations, student and families, and digital inclusion. And all of these we are now having to perform under this umbrella of safety, operations, and communications. Next slide, please. So some of the workplace safety practices that we've had to implement to be able to safely provide services during the shelter in place are listed here. For instance, telecommuting, and then when we do have essential staff on site, we are doing staggered work shifts. We've had to mandate physical and social distancing of our workspaces, and then social distancing of our employees to make sure that they're staying safe while they perform their duties. We've also, the city has actually implemented a workplace screening process for all of our essential employees that report to the facility, which includes a temperature check and a questionnaire, a health questionnaire. And that gets reported daily to our EOC safety folks. We've also had to procure personal protective equipment as appropriate and recommended, as well as cleaning supplies. Any staff member that is asked to report back to the facility has to take a workplace safety training. So our library safety liaison and training unit have developed an online tool for that. And then we work very closely with our employee relations and HR department to cover any employee COVID guidance. So any potential exposures that we deal with, and then also working through the employee leave system for folks who we do need to quarantine or, recommend that they get tested or whatnot.
Jenny, quick question. Pardon my ignorance, but how many branches are completely closed?
All of our branches are closed to the public. So
okay. What are they doing while there's no public coming in and checking out books and all that?
Well, they're still handling the materials management. So there are, I want to say 13 right now. Michelle's going to give you a little bit more information on our express pickup service sites. So there's limited staff at the sites that are performing express pickup currently, but the facility is still technically closed to the public. However, there are staff on site running the express service and then various other of our expanded services. But we'll have stats for you on that a little bit later in the presentation.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. And then next slide. And I think this is where I tag in Michelle.
Hi, everybody. This is Michelle Arnott here. I am not going to show my video because apparently my internet connection is unstable. So I'm going to talk a bit about public services and all the things that the staff have been doing during our time away. So there are a couple different things when it comes to access and information support that we felt really strongly about and that we wanted to implement immediately once we closed on March 17th. So first of all, with regard to account services, we suspended fines. So that way anybody who had materials that were checked out upon closure were not penalized for that. And we extended the due dates on all those items so people didn't have to worry about coming back and rushing back to return items while people were sheltering in place. We also extended expiration dates on library cards, so that way people were not without access during that time. And we also preserved people's holds, their place in holds, because we know sometimes for popular items, people wait a really long time to get those, and we didn't want anyone to have to lose out on that. The other thing that we also did was we just increased the holds limit. So now people will be able to place 30 items on hold, because we recognize that not being able to come in and access the collection is a real barrier to access. And so by increasing that holds limit, hopefully that'll allow people to get more of what they need and have to come to the library location less frequently. The staff have been really busy, to say the least, even though we're not open to the public. We have been providing a lot of virtual customer support from day one. And since March 17th to August 15th, we have answered or had 15,418 ref chat transactions. What that is that you can you text or a librarian or chat with a librarian online during our service hours during the daytime, and we'll be able to answer any questions and help you out. That's a 698.5% increase over the same time period last year. And that has comprised over 4,000 staff hours of librarians that are helping to do this work remotely. And we also recognize the need to add additional language support. So we were able to add language and chat support in Spanish, Chinese, and Vietnamese. Because we can't access our physical collections during the first part of the pandemic when we were closed, we developed an e-library card, and we allowed anybody who lives in San Jose to have access to an e-card and have instant ability to check out e-audiobooks, e-books, access all of our databases and everything. We have so far registered 11,774 new members, new cardholders, and to respond to the demand for ebooks and e-audiobooks, we've added over 30,000 new titles. We also reduced the holds ratio on high demand titles to so that we would reduce the wait time. And that means that the high demand titles, it's a 1-to-3 ratio. So for every hold, there would be 3 copies available. We have had since March 17th 628,184 e-checkouts, which is an 88.5% increase over the same period last year. And we also increased our collections. We trying to respond to student need, to community need, and also we've been able to have school support, student support for databases such as Scholastic Teachables, and things like that. We've seen an increase in the usage of lynda.com, and also seen an increase in items that are basically newspaper reading, things like that. Next slide. So we started our express pickup on June 15th at initially 10 locations, and now we have 16 locations. And we used an equity screen, and we also identified areas in each council district that we would start the services first. Tomorrow, we open up site 17, which is going to be King Library, so we're very excited about that. And then we will have additional sites coming on at the end of the month and then in September. Currently, we're operating Monday through Saturday, 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., and we are available by appointment for pickup, text, or phone. Since we've opened, we've had 37,942 patrons that have been served through our express site. And now with the holds limit being increased, that number and the items checkout will already go up. We're already seeing an increase with people maxing out that hold limit. The picture below gives an example if you haven't gone to one of our express libraries yet, basically what the setup is. It's a contactless service. You wait for a staff member to let you know when your item is available. Staff member puts the item on the table, and then with social distancing, you pick that item up. A couple of things that we've added to the feature here is that we've made it so that summer learning items, the prizes can be picked up during that time. And then we also did activity kits for kids. And then we'll talk a little bit about summer lunches and some of the things we did with that too. The other thing that we've been able to do too is we've partnered with this outside service with PRNS when they needed to promote registration for summer camps. So we allow tabling for them outside. And then coming soon, because the census is ending soon, we're going to be partnering with our city census partners to be able to have some tabling outside, socially distanced at the library. Next slide. So virtual programming. Our staff really quickly pivoted to provide virtual programming in lieu of physical programming as soon as we shut down. Since March 17th, and this is through July 31st, we've provided over 1,000 programs and have had nearly 20,000 people attend. And that's well over that now since we're already in the middle of August. And these programs have ranged from book clubs to coding camps, all kinds of things. And what's interesting about this process and what the team had to learn to do is basically figure out virtual programming standards. You know, what constitutes a good video? How do we engage in a space? How do we work with volunteers in those spaces? And how we ensure that we have good connectivity for our staff, like Jenny mentioned, and that we have a responsive registration process, promotion process in all of that. Next slide. So just to give you an example of the breadth of the programs that we've been providing, we are divided up into 3 different categories between early education, youth and teens, and adults. And the remarkable thing about what our early education folks have done is that they have been consistently providing live, virtual, interactive programming, story times, and preschool via Zoom every single weekday. They've also done multilingual programming, so we've got story times in Russian, Japanese, Spanish. And this programming also is available via the library's YouTube channel, so we have 24/7 access for that. Also done STEM learning. We have our We Connect series online, And then we started an Our City Storytime series with Create TV. We also recognize that not everybody has access to virtual programming. So we created, the team created Telephone Tales, where every Friday there are 3 new stories in different languages. So either songs, rhymes, and parents can call in on a dedicated line, like in the old days, and listen to a story over the phone. The early education team also came up with a device or a tool for parents called Ready for K, where it's a text service and parents can enroll in this, and a few times a week they get helpful hints on language skills, any pre-literacy skills, anything like that to help them out while they're at home with their children. For youth and teens, we know that STEM learning is really important, and it's really a core of what we do. So the team had to work to pivot all of the planned coding camps and coding classes to offer them virtually. So we were still successfully able to provide coding classes during in the camps during the summer, and we were even able to expand to younger coders that we hadn't been working with before during this time. Additionally, for those participants that may not have had access to some of the STEM materials, we created kits and that they were able to come and pick up at an express site. So that would be anything they needed to do the STEM activity, to get creative, that we ensured that everybody had the same access to those materials. Couple other things that we did for teens is we had a really, really well-received Model UN a virtual session where the students learned about debate and learned some oration. So that was really widely well received. And then there's also the Teen Entrepreneurs Club that is done with a partner through SJPL Works. And then during this time too, our librarians have been doing virtual librarian class visits, virtual homework help, and really trying to stay connected with the schools and the students and to provide those services. One thing I didn't mention before is that we also created a student and school resource page on our website to try to highlight all of our resources that either families learning at home can access, or also teachers may need to help supplement the curricula. For adults, we have had a number of really, really successful programs, and one of them, we just received a message from a woman that lives in India who has been there during this time of COVID, and she participates online in language conversation clubs. And she wrote an amazing, basically thank you for our service in keeping her connected. And it's been really interesting to see how adults have been coming together online and finding ways to come together and share. That can be seen in the Community Connection Hour, also in the Caregiver Cafe that our early education department hosts every Monday evening for caregivers. We also have virtual volunteerism. We've got Partners in Reading still doing literacy tutoring online. And then we're also doing still SJPL Works, doing resume and interview skills. And then we have a really great program called Active Adult Tech Time, where over Zoom, people have tech issues and tech questions, and it's a forum to get answers that people need. Next slide. We still provided, I see a gross typo there. We provided summer meals again this year at 4 library locations, and the program ran between June 15th and August 7th, and 5,009 meals were served. And those of you who have seen summer meal report outs in the last years may notice that there are fewer sites this year. We did 4 sites because many of the schools were providing summer lunch. And so, for example, Biblioteca the Washington School, which is next door, provided summer lunch. So we partnered with Parents and Schools to really identify which locations would be of best use. For the summer meals also, our library team created other grab and go kits, and all of these meals were grab and go, by the way. So it was all social distanced, and differently than other lunch programs that we've done in the past, people could actually take the meals off site and take them home. So it was really a great program again, and we partnered with Revolution Foods and Second Harvest and YMCA. And additionally, we received a mini grant from California Library Association, where we also did activity kits that the parents could take and at each one of the locations. Next slide. A huge part of what we have done during this last year has been directly related to emergency operations. So when the pandemic hit, the virtual EOC was activated, and many of us played significant roles in that EOC work. So the work ranges from working in liaison units, so with schools. We had two of our KPRR, which is our, and also the SJPL Works librarians, be assigned full-time to the small business liaison group. We also have a librarian working with community engagement, a number of people working in planning and documentation, and also public information. But really importantly, we worked with the child care and digital inclusion branches of the EOC. And what's significant about child care and digital inclusion is that these are not normal or typical branches of an emergency operations center. Our city librarian, Jill Bourne, co-directs the child care branch. And also she was asked and stood up an entirely new branch called the Digital Inclusion Branch to address the needs of our city, where we have the digital divide and where people are suffering from not having access. On the other side of this work is what we call disaster service work or disaster service assignments. And many of our furloughed staff and our part-time staff were called upon for meal distribution, for traffic control, and also translation services. These services range from being a full-time service to a few hours a week all across the city at senior centers, at schools, to be able to distribute these meals. This was an absolutely vital service that hundreds and thousands of people benefited from. Next slide. So another big part of emergency operations is this child care piece, like I said, and in our continuing effort to support our families and those providers impacted by COVID-19, the city recognized that investing in child care during this time is a critical part of the economic recovery process. So far, $2.5 million in coronavirus relief funds have been given out in grant money for operators, for the family child care providers. And each of these providers that were eligible received up to $10,000. And this program is administered by our partners, First Five and SCOE. And the city also worked on CDBG childcare subsidies. This $1 million allowed for a year of support for low-income families impacted by COVID. And it's estimated that 35 to 45 families have been supported through this. And this is also administered by First Five and SCOE. And as we go through this and into the school year, there is a referral service for city staff needing care for placement for these children in 0 to 5 age group. The other big thing that we have, and we know that this is a huge issue with distance learning for our schools, and students is the need for safe and accessible place to learn. So the team has worked on basically a full day supervision program that is going to be based on the model that we used for our summer camps for Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Care. So this is in partnership with PRNS and our Parks Recreation Neighborhood step in step with us on these really, really highly critical services for our students. Coming up in next Monday on the 24th, we will begin providing this full day supervision for students that have been referred to us through the schools, and our Education Innovation Unit who has also been part of the digital inclusion branch, working with the schools closely on the referral systems to make this happen. The idea will be to focus on low-income students, and we're also looking at coordination of meal programs and other supports. What's important about this too is that throughout the summer, Jill and the team have been hosting and working with the schools on regular, if not multiple times a day calls to coordinate these efforts for access. And then also to work with SCOE and Dr. Dewan on getting the message out and working with the school districts on these things. Next slide. During this time too, that was really critical to provide support for employees and their families. And our team was instrumental in making these connections for families. So, 23 employee families that were served, and this is through the city. 42 children were provided care during this time. And it's really important that these were some of our first responders through police and fire and PRNS that were doing absolutely essential disaster service work and COVID response. Next slide. So the Rock and Learn program, which is starting next Monday on August 24th, is going to be a way for the city to respond to this need to provide safe connectivity in a place for students to learn during the school year. A couple important things about this is that the team has worked, again, closely with SCOE and the county on this. And to know too that right now schools are legally prohibited from providing in-person instruction. And this allows us to provide this stable cohort of 12 students for 3-week sessions in alignment with the city's guidelines. And again, this model is using the Camp San Jose Strong program that happened this summer. So we've had a pretty good idea about how to vet this program. And our partners at PRNS, who have also for years now provided the Rock after school program as well, have a pretty good framework with this. So we're really excited to be able to use our library community rooms and use community center and park locations to provide the safe space for students to learn. Next slide. The second huge part, like I said, of emergency operations so far has been with the digital inclusion branch. And the digital inclusion branch was created in April of 2020. And it was not just the library staff, it also involves staff from our Office of Civic Innovation and the Information Technology Department. And the real crux of the work has been to identify programs that aim to increase connectivity and digital literacy to our most in need communities. And also understanding that our students need to have consistent, seamless access for distance learning. Next slide. So after much work, the team for lack of a better word, I think is brokered a deal or a way to get student support that needed. And this comes in the form of hotspot lending. And last week, a week before last, 8,000 hotspots were checked out to students who had been referred to the program via the school districts. And this is important because this is a partnership with AT&T and the city. And this is going to allow students to have unlimited data and connectivity for the course of the whole school year. Also, it allows us a chance to circulate hotspots for our city programs. And we are working on a plan now to be able to circulate those hotspots, one, through regular branch checkout, and two, with our adults who are in our programs. So whether they're literacy participants, whether they're part of the Curlin High School cohort, our team is working on identifying those and for that to be rolled out in the coming weeks. The other thing that we are working on is device checkout and figuring out how we can best combine the access to devices and technology with digital literacy and combining those two. Our team during this year, during this time, has spent time reconfiguring and rescoping some of the digital inclusion grants that we have received in order to comply with social distancing guidelines and then also get devices and the digital literacy instruction into the hands of our customers that most need it. The other thing that the digital inclusion branch has worked on is expanding Wi-Fi services and to try to get Wi-Fi out into larger areas, the outside areas. And we are going to do that at 9 of our library branches. And this is going to boost that connectivity. As you know, when you go by libraries right now, you may see people in our parking lots trying to access the Wi-Fi because it's available 24 hours a day. This will allow, through the city efforts, to get Wi-Fi out further and potentially connect more people. This comes under our new program called SJ Access, and SJ Access is the umbrella under which all of our digital inclusion programs will be coming under. Next slide.
Do you have a time frame for that, when that's rolling out?
I'm going to let Anne answer that.
SJ Access is rolling out right now.
You mean for the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I just mean, I'm being very selfish here and thinking of my students, you know, when their Wi-Fi goes out or they have rolling blackouts, if they can go, if their parents or if they have a car or have a way of parking in the parking lot and using the access, then they can still attend school. So that's where I was going with this.
Oh, sure. So they can currently park in any of our parking lots and use the Wi-Fi. At those 9 branches, we will have intentional built outdoor networks so that the bandwidth will be specifically for the outdoor network and they'll have a better experience. That will be probably November. We'll have those installs completed. But they can certainly go and get access just like they would at Starbucks in our parking lots right now.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Thank you very much for doing that.
Sure.
And again, and that current access is available 24 hours a day. So it's really great and vital that, not great, but it's vital that we have that and that we get to provide that seamlessly. The last piece here is with the device lending and the hotspot lending that we are piloting. So this it started on Monday, on the 17th. And this is a way for us to be able to test on a small scale with 35 devices for how this is going to work for our patrons. Vidya Colombi, who is our division manager for education and innovation, has been working with the team to come up with with a model that we are planning on after some iteration of scaling and replicating to other branches as we move forward through the fiscal year. The pilot branches are Allen Rock, Hillview, Evergreen, Educational Park, and Tully. And the devices are available on a first come, first served basis. And the patrons who will be accessing this program will have been referred through existing programs. And so this is in close partnership with our family literacy coordinators that we have at our locations that work closely with the communities and in these programs. And the interesting thing about this program and all of the digital inclusion work that we're doing is that the checkout period for these devices is not a typical checkout period as we would have for a book or a DVD. These are going to be 90-day checkouts with a renewal of 30 days per user, because the team in their research and in their construction of these programs have found that in order for us to get to our adoption for our communities, they need a longer time to interact with these devices and with these hotspots. So we'll be doing evaluation of this program in the coming year, and there'll be much more reporting on digital inclusion as we go through the rest of the year. Next slide.
Okay, that pretty much takes us to the end of our presentation. We wanted to give you a little taste of what's on deck next. I will mention that, that exhaustive safety and screening process that I was talking about earlier, we have actually had to go through that for every single one of these modified services. So the teams and the staff have just been amazing at kind of turning things around, being flexible, adhering to all these new safety protocols. So we are planning on continuing with our express pickup expansion, and we would hopefully want to have that at every single one of our branches, hopefully by the fall. And then also continuing with device and hotspot lending, continue with the student support in the ROC and student support program or service. And we will continue to work with our EOC safety branch and our public works departments, all of our fantastic colleagues in the city that have allowed us to provide these services. And we know that there's still a lot of need out there. So we'll continue to kind of move through these phases as we can based on the county and city guidance. And with that, that ends our presentation. If you want to go to the next slide, and we are open for questions.
Wow.
I was going to say the same thing. Wow, you guys have not let any moss grow your shoes.
I was just going to say the same thing. Oh my goodness. How lucky are the people in our city? Good job. Thank you all for your work on behalf of those who really need it right now.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff, I just have one thing. Some of the stuff I wonder about how we'll think about the future. So it has to be that some of the practices that we're learning and some of the systems that we're putting in place that we would not have thought to do before have the ability to move forward in the future. I think we all heard, maybe somebody heard Michelle Obama's podcast. She was talking to her friend and they were talking about the object is not to go back. It's not to go back to normal. It's actually to go forward with something new. And I'm so proud of you and so grateful to you. And I hope we're going to take a lot of new things forward.
Yeah, I think the last time we were well, we probably weren't in a meeting, but the last discussion was how can we stay open? How can we stay open as long as possible? And that's like ancient history now. And you guys have done so much since the branches had to close. It's really, really great, impressive work. I did have one specific question. You mentioned lynda.com and how the usage was up. If I go back to that ancient history, the last thing I remember with Lynda was that there was a privacy related issue. Did that get remedied, or did they change their policy, or what's the status with that?
Yeah, I don't know if Michelle wants to speak to, but the good news is that Lynda heard loud and clear from, LinkedIn heard loud and clear from libraries, and they decided to defer the transition that they had planned. And so we've been able to maintain access for our patrons. So they did not go forward with the new policy that was going to basically make our patrons' information vulnerable.
Well, that's fantastic, especially given that the usage increased over the past few months. So that would have been really detrimental to so many of our users. So that's great. Does anybody else have, I'm sure there's lots of questions, so I don't know how, if someone wants to just speak up.
I'm just impressed about the short fuse and the reallocation of assets and everyone jumping on board. It's just mind-boggling to me. All these new programs that I never heard of before are all just implemented since March 17th. It's incredible. So kudos to everyone involved.
Thank you.
I may make a comment. This is Commissioner Magana. I just want to say just thank you as well. I've been in my role at City Year. We helped Allen Rock School District with their tech just distribution and just getting tech materials together, and to see the look on the faces of families knowing that they would be able to be connected not just to distance learning but to just the internet as a whole, as we know is absolutely needed today more than ever, especially with COVID, was just phenomenal. It was fantastic. Obviously it was hard to see. You could see it in their eyes because of course everyone had their masks on as well to be safe, but it was great to be able to hand out hotspots to families in the community, again, to keep them connected. And many saying, you know, we wouldn't be able to do distance learning if it wasn't for this partnership. And being heavily involved in that space, I know how much work it takes to do this, how much it takes in logistics. I know there's a lot of back orders as well when it came to hotspots and just connectivity. So I just want to say thank you all so much for your hard work. It's truly impacting not just our children's lives, but overall families' lives, and that I could speak to, at least in the east side of San Jose. So thank you so much for that.
And so if I can pitch in, I teach in South County in Gilroy, and I just want to offer for the South Side, this is super important as well. I live in South San Jose, but teach in Gilroy, and you know, we used to always say, oh, we'll go to the library if you don't have Wi-Fi, right? And so, you know, and we would find where is the closest library, and we would direct them. Like long before I was a commissioner, I always did that, right? So when the libraries closed, it was really difficult, you know, to have a place to refer our kids to. So, you know, I just want to, you know, reiterate how important this is, and how much, you know, as a teacher, I appreciate this, you know, that the equity issue of, you know, one student from another is just glaringly obvious during this COVID, and you guys are helping to level the playing field in this way, and it's just, it couldn't be more important. So thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
We actually have a second half of the presentation. So once we're ready to move on from the service update, we do have an update on where the budget landed at the end of last year, which is absolutely COVID related, as the city looks at several budget reductions.
Okay.
Justin, if you could advance the slides, please. And here we have Andrea Maestre, who's our administrative officer. She's going to walk us through the budget update and where we closed the last fiscal year.
Everyone, good evening. Now we're going to move on, like Ann said, to talk about the library budget. I'm the administrative officer for the library department, and as we all know, COVID impacted the city of San Jose's budget, and also as well, you know, the trickle-down effect to the library. And we were all gung-ho in March and January, February, March with, you know, great ideas for expanding services to Sunday, to kind of doing our fines free possibly for all, not just juvenile. And so we had a lot of really great ideas and great proposals that moved forward to council. But unfortunately, the COVID pandemic did impact the city's revenues overall, and in particular, also one of the library's main capital revenue streams are construction and conveyance tax. And so we'll just start off with the library mission. So we all know the library mission. It's very near and dear to our heart, and it's actually even more important now today than ever when you think about that every member of the community has access to a vast array of ideas and information. And so you know, we just saw the COVID report out and all of the modified services that are being delivered by the library, and it's just amazing. It's amazing. I mean, I've been working in the library and I see all of our stats and everything, but to see it in one presentation in a PowerPoint, it's amazing for me to even see that as a library employee. And so it's definitely eye-opening, and I think that everyone's been doing a great job in that transition and pivoting to delivering those services in a different way. And so next slide, please. So our 5 strategic priorities, as we all are aware: enhance, connect, engage, ensure, and boost. And so just kind of some boilerplate to remind us of our strategic priorities when we're thinking about the department and departmental budget priorities. Next slide. And so we'll just start off with an overview of where our budget landed. And so our adopted budget includes, from an operating perspective, $48.7 million. And that includes our general fund, library parcel tax, a small portion of capital funds that funds actual positions, and then a small portion for gift trust. That includes 375.47 FTE. And then our capital budget is 21 million that got adopted. And so our funding sources for capital include our bond funds, construction and conveyance tax, and our library parcel tax. So a couple things that I'd like to point out is for our capital budget, last year our adopted capital budget was approximately 2.3 million more than it is this year. And so that is primarily tied to the reduction in the construction and conveyance tax revenues. We had to reduce not only our capital budget in the current year, but our 5-year capital budget, because the city is anticipating that revenues will continue to be decreased for the next 2 years, and then start kicking back up in the 4th and 5th year. And so when we look at the capital improvement program 5-year CIP of 46.9 million, the prior capital year budget was approximately $7.8 million more than that. And that is there's some portion of it tied to library parcel tax reduction, some portion, but majority of that 7.8 million is the construction and conveyance tax. And so that does support our acquisition of materials. We had to take a reduction in our acquisition of materials. We also had to take a reduction in our overall capital plan in terms of branch facility improvements and regular branch projects. And so it's a pretty big impact in our first year, as well as just ongoing. And so we're going to continue to have those discussions with the budget office in terms of how we can try to address our capital needs on an ongoing basis so that we can try to minimize that impact. But the adopted budget does include a pretty significant capital impact. From the operating side, although the operating budget is almost about the same as what it was 1920, a couple of major changes is that the foundation is funding about 400,000 of our 400,000 around in our personal services to fund some key positions for key programs. And so we'll get into that details on the next slides. But the other main contributor to not seeing such a big impact is that we also got one-time funds of $500K just one time to kind of minimize some of the impact of some of the budget reductions in this first year. And so although the total budget looks about the same, we're still have a significant loss in terms of our budget reductions. Next slide, please. So now we're going to get into the specifics of the actual city and library COVID budget impacts. And so the citywide general fund revenue shortfalls for last year, 1920, were $45 million. And they were anticipating for 2021, $65 million. And so for 1920, the library was able to recognize savings due to shelter in place and the closure. So there was some non-personal utility and some other supplies type savings that we were able to recognize. We were also able to implement hiring freeze, and we halted all non-essential capital projects in an effort to save some funding as well. And then we took a one-time non-personal budget reduction of $200,000. And so the combination of all of those was very helpful in terms of the citywide being able to contribute towards that $45 million reduction. But then we got into 2021 and it got a lot more complicated. So our original target was $4.97 million, which is 17.65% of our general fund budget. It's huge. It would, if we're thinking about the types of services the library delivers, I mean, that's a huge number. When we penciled it out and did the math and came up with budget proposals, it was a significant amount of staff that would be reduced. We are public service organization, and we provide service to the public. So the only types of reductions that are realistic are in fact staff and reduced hours. So the other budget reduction target we're faced with is $1.5 million reduction in our library parcel tax. And then also reconsidering any one-time funded programs in the year that we were going to be proposing to either make permanent or continue into this year. Next slide, please. So there was a lot of it feels like it was a frenzy of like the whole month of April, nonstop, every day, hours and hours of going back and forth with the budget office to try to figure out what would be the final reduction scenarios included in the adopted budget. And so the end result of what's included in the adopted budget is in fact recognizing some savings for modified services for 3 to 6 months for COVID. There was a dollar amount that was come up with in regards to some of perhaps utilities or other types of savings, as well as personal services due to vacancies. And then upon reopening, we would have a reduction of 27.8 FTE, and those are all vacant positions. And so basically that results in a reduction of 4 hours per week at every single location. Part of this also included shifting positions from the general fund to our library parcel tax reserves or to the foundation, the San Jose Public Library Foundation, as I had indicated earlier. They're funding approximately $400K for some specific programs, which includes SJ Learns, college and career readiness, childcare workforce development, and so and education and digital literacy. And so those are one-time solutions, and so we're going to be faced with figuring out how to move forward pretty soon. Again, this budget cycle, and so. The other things to think about is that this is what was included in the adopted budget. The department proposed other reduction scenarios that were not accepted. And then the other kind of piece to think about is that the budget included what's called a contingency plan, a package 2, which for the library department includes an additional reduction of 21.76 FTE, and those are all filled positions. And that would reduce library hours by an additional 6 hours per week. And that is something that the city requested that all departments and have a contingency plan included in the budget. It was not going to be approved with the adopted budget, but the thought process was that in the event that the city's budget situation continues to worsen in the fall, the city administration will bring forward some of those, perhaps some or all of those package 2 contingency budget proposals to be reviewed and approved by council. At this point, in my conversations with budget office, they have not made a decision on if any of those particular budget reductions are going to move forward. So I don't have an indication on the possibility of that happening. One thing, if you can, one more slide, please. So when we think about our original kind of concept, like I said, was to kind of expand our fines free to all, and Sunday hours, 6-day service. We had a lot of really great proposals. Our Mount Pleasant, continuing the 40 hours a week at a Mount Pleasant library. We had making the child care workforce development, as well as our education and digital literacy initiatives more permanent. Since we were faced with this particular, the COVID impacts and the budget reduction scenarios, many of those were adjusted or eliminated from the list of proposals. And so what did move forward was we were successful at the juvenile fines free program permanency, which is great. I know for years we've been trying to get that in permanent. The fines free for all was not entertained, and so we'll just have to continue to revisit that at a later date. The other types of initiatives that we had originally proposed for permanency was the EDL and child care workforce development, and we were successful at continuing those programs due to the one-time funding from the foundation. Our college and career readiness, SJ Learns, we received one-time funding from the foundation as well. And then what happened is that is our library branch hours reduction, the 4 hours reduction, which was the 27.8 FTE reduction. And so one of the things that happened very late, I want to say in June, there was a adjustment to the budget that included the library getting one-time funding of $500K in this year to help offset with that library branch hours reduction scenario. And so, and to try to help support our modified services plans. And so, although it is nice that we have the one-time $500,000, it's still a huge impact to the library to have a reduction of 27.8 FTE, and it's a huge impact to the community to reduce library hours in any neighborhood, as well as to not be able to continue the 40 hours at a week at Mount Pleasant. And so we wanted to provide an update to kind of start that process of where is the budget at right now today, and kind of we'll be moving in quickly to the budget process and thinking about what might be some of our budget initiatives and targets that we'll be looking forward to promoting as priorities. And so next slide, please. This is a review of the capital side. So as I had said earlier, we had to do a reduction in our branch facilities and maintenance. We have MLK facility maintenance. We have branch security cameras that are still funded. We have IT infrastructure that's still funded. And then we had to take a reduction in our collection budget. And so when we went into this budget cycle, we wanted to increase our collections budget. And so unfortunately, it went in the opposite direction. So we're continuing to kind of work on how we can try to minimize that impact and see how we can continue to deliver those services in the manner that we'd like to with this particular impact to our budget. Next slide. And that's it. So I know we got to hear all this great stuff about all the great modified services that the library has pivoted to, and you know, unfortunately there's a huge budget impact as a result of COVID, and I don't know that they'll be moving forward with any of the package 2 contingency plan scenarios, but we should probably expect to be prepared for another kind of perhaps budget reduction or no add scenario this budget season, but we'll have to wait and see what happens, and how long the modified services continue, and how long we're going to continue to maintain being closed to the public. And so there's a lot of variables that roll into what might or might not happen this coming budget season. But just to provide an update of kind of where we're at and where our budget stands for this year, as well as our 5-year CIP. Does anybody have any questions?
Anyone have any questions? I do not right now.
Well, thank you.
I wanted to comment that it seems so long ago now, Andrea, that we were having those budget discussions. And, it still is one thing to celebrate that when the budget office first came to us with our budget reduction targets, it was assumed that, that we would reinstitute fines for children. And that when we were told that if we wanted to maintain fines free for youth, we would have to take a deeper cut. And I'm really proud of Andrea and our whole team, because we basically just said no and fought really, really hard. And at the time it was hard because we knew we were going to have to lose positions, and we know how bad this economic situation is for everybody. And so, I want to thank you guys all for your advocacy on that, because we felt very confident in pushing hard on it. And in the end, our budget office was fully supportive. And with some funding that they got, they were able, or that they identified, they were able to make sure that that is now permanent. So we don't have to have that argument every year. And so, yeah, we felt that now more than ever, our kids, our youth need to not have to deal with fines to access resources. So just one more thing to celebrate, even though the budget situation will continue to be a challenge.
Well, I think you guys have done a fantastic job. I'm not a financial guru or anything, but I was suitably impressed. So again, kudos to everyone involved in the budgetary and all the budgetary process and all the things you had to move around. It's just incredible. I mean, to me, it's mind blowing, but maybe that's just me.
All right.
I think Dawn is on, and I just want to acknowledge the foundation really stepping up and supporting some of our key education positions.
You're very welcome. I'm so glad that we were in a position to be able to do that for you, and working with you on doing all the digital inclusion work. Looking forward to expanding out on what the pilot will be able to achieve, and hopefully expand very many more devices that we can get out into the hands of people. And looking forward, and as we said, how do we move forward into what the new world is rather than moving back? So there's some amazing new programs that have emerged out of this that will be essential to keep going. So looking forward to the next steps together.
Question for Jill. Are you going to be making a presentation at the All Friends meeting at the end of August?
Oh, I hadn't thought about that, to be honest. I've been really immersed in the EOC stuff. So, yeah, I'm sure we would be happy to provide, any aspect of that.
Pretty sure Don will be there, so.
Yeah. I don't know if Michelle had planned to do that. I haven't received anything. Is it it's a Zoom meeting?
Yeah, it's a Zoom. It's a Zoom for sure.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm sure we would be happy to share.
I'm not sure if the invitation had gone out yet, Jill, but yeah, we definitely can do that.
Great.
Yeah, it's a Bascom branch. Steve is in charge of it.
If I can offer just sort of a personal comment on the budget as well. A very good friend of mine works for the library, and she was very stressed about the potential of being laid off and was incredibly delighted that she was not. And so just on a personal level, I want to thank you guys, you know, in one for taking care of our students, you know, and our kids and elders, but also taking care of the working, you know, people working for you too. So thank you for taking care of you too. You're important. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to Andrea and the whole team for working so hard. At one point, we did a series of staff town halls about the budget where we had at least 100 staff join in each one. And, you know, just to make sure that they were engaged and informed. And I was always, you know, so pleasantly surprised. I mean, I love our staff and it's hard not to be connected to them, that they were so, you know, understanding and engaged and cheerful. And if you ever ended to attend a staff Zoom meeting at the library, everybody is writing like nice messages to each other in the chat, like the whole time. Like everybody's like cheering each other on. It's the most wonderful thing to see.
All right. Well, I think that was informational, so we don't need to take a vote on an action. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So I'll say thank you very much for that presentation again. And we will move on to council liaisons announcements. Do we know if they are on the call?
I do not believe the council liaison, Councilmember Arenas or her staff are on the call.
Okay. On to chair's announcements. That would be me. I don't have anything in particular to say other than echoing all of the thanks for the hard work that has been done since March. I think everyone was incredibly impressed with that presentation of all of the things that we've been doing while the branches are closed. And not that there would be any expectation that this team did anything less than stellar work, but this meeting and this presentation was basically the confirmation of that. So just a thank you for all that you guys do, because the library does, it is really for everyone in San Jose, but the people that need the services the most are the ones that the library really excels at helping. So thank you for that. Only other thing, I just take a point of personal privilege and congratulate the folks that, I think there are two commissioners who were up for election in November and did not have anyone run against them. So congratulations, if I'm not mistaken, Commissioner Snyder and Commissioner Mahaney Gurahu, if you'd like to share the congratulations with both of them. And if I'm missing anybody, please point it out. I don't mean to exclude anyone from the congratulations that are well deserved. And with that, I will move on to the director's report.
Thank you. I also wanted to thank the commissioners, and I want to call out Commissioner Magana and Mahaney Guru, who both have been instrumental in supporting some of the emergency work that we've done. When we needed a response from San Jose Unified District, Commissioner Magana was extremely quick in terms of helping. And then a lot of the work that we're doing to issue grants to childcare providers and subsidies to families is working closely with First Five, and Wendy has been incredibly supportive of that. So I think these relationships are really important and help us really leverage all of our work to help our families. Also, we've thanked the team a lot. I just wanted to acknowledge, you heard from Jenny and Michelle. Elizabeth Castaneda, our communications manager, has been incredible in terms of the communications, and Nancy Macias, who I think is tonight, as you know, our in public relations, our communications has been amazing in terms of getting out the word about all of our programs. We also have our division managers, who you can't see all of them, but Jean Harrigus, Michelle Morris, and Vidya Colombi have all led the teams throughout this period wonderfully. Andrea Maestre, who you just heard, managing our finance and personnel areas. And then I just want to acknowledge Ann Grabowski, who is actually the assistant director of both of those branches of the EOC, and without whom we would not have been successful. So just a stellar team. And well, that's one of my earpieces, excuse me.
Yay.
Oh,
no. Yay to all of the above. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. And while we have this fantastic team of women, I also want to acknowledge Justin for jumping in to be our sort of clerk of the commission tonight. So thank you, Justin, for all your support. And then some of you joined our first virtual Career Online High School graduation a few weeks ago. And we had our largest graduating class of 32 students. The Library Foundation and the staff and partners in reading were absolutely amazing in doing an inspiring job of creating an experience that was really special for the graduates. Each graduate was mailed a cap and gown and some like flair, whatever the kids are calling it today, and postcards of congratulations from staff and library supporters that they've been writing for the prior month. There were recorded videos from the mayor and other sort of local celebrities and athletes, and of course, library folks. And it actually felt very personal to see the graduates in their homes celebrating with their families. It was really a wonderful program. And I just want to thank Dawn Coppin again and her team, as well as Pam Cornelison from the Partners in Reading team for that wonderful program. And then lastly, we are planning a virtual press conference the first week of September. And so we will let you know as soon as that is scheduled. And that will be to announce a $2 million gift to our SJ Aspires program. So you probably remember this is an online college readiness program with a curriculum partnered with Students Rising Above. The program piloted at Oberfelt High School last year, and each student was able to sort of accumulate over by completing different levels of this program up to about $500 in micro scholarship monies that they could use however they needed for higher education. And because it was so successful, we're now able to increase to, I think, 1,000 students. And the micro scholarships are up to $5,000. So that is really significant. And we're really excited about this program. We'll send you more information as we have it. You'll see on the screen, there's information about some of the programs you heard tonight about SJ Access, the Express Pickup. And then I guess lastly, this Saturday is our 12th annual Graphic Novel Making Contest Awards ceremony. This is usually a very populated event with hundreds of participants that we have to have in our largest conference room. And this year we're doing it online for the first time. So it promises to be a lot of fun. So please feel free to follow that link and join us if you can on Saturday. And that concludes my updates. I welcome any questions.
All right, well, I don't hear any. So we will move on to opening the floor to any announcements from commissioners. Okay, either there are none or everyone is on the mute button. This is a strange one for this month. Items for future agenda, but we just went over the work plan earlier this meeting, so I don't think there will be any suggestions for that. And so our next meeting will be September 16th at the Zoom branch.
I know that branch. I went there today.
And if that is it, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:51 p.m.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
Good night.
Thank you all so much. Bye.
Great to see you all.
Good night.
Been
Good
reading.
Good to
night.
see you.
Night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good
Good
night.
Thank you.
night.
Good night.
Good night, Jill. So if I end it, I think I'll